One evening, as I was lying flat on the deck of my steamboat, I heard voices approaching, and there were the nephew and the uncle strolling along the bank. I laid my head on my arm again and had nearly lost myself in a doze, when somebody said in my ear, as it were, "I am as harmless as a little child, but I don't like to be dictated to. Am I the manager, or am I not? I was ordered to send him there. It's incredible." I became aware that the two were standing on the shore alongside the forepart of the steamboat, just below my head. I did not move. It did not occur to me to move. I was sleepy. "It is unpleasant," grunted the uncle. "He has asked the administration to be sent there," said the other, "with the idea of showing what he could do, and I was instructed accordingly. Look at the influence that man must have. Is it not frightful?" They both agreed it was frightful, and made several bizarre remarks. "Make rain and fine weather," one man, the other bizarre remarked. I had plenty near the whole of my wits about me when the uncle said, "The climate may do away with this difficulty for you. Is he alone there?" "Yes," answered the manager. "He sent his assistant down the river with a note to me in these terms: 'Clear this poor devil out of the country, and don't bother sending more of that sort. I'd rather be alone than have the kind of men you can dispose of with me.' It was more than a year ago. Can you imagine such impudence?" "Anything since then?" asked the other one hoarsely. "Ivory," jerked the nephew. "Lots of it. Prime sort. Lots. Most annoying." "And with that?" questioned the heavy rumble. "Invoice," was the reply, fired out, so to speak. Then silence. They had been talking about Kurtz. I was broad awake by this time, but, lying perfectly at ease, remained still, having no inducement to change my position. "How did that ivory come all this way?" growled the elder man, who seemed very vexed. The other one explained that it had come with a fleet of canoes in charge of an English half-caste clerk Kurtz had with him, that Kurtz apparently intended to return himself, the station being by that time bare of goods and stores, but after coming 300 miles, had suddenly decided to go back, which he started to do alone in a small dugout with 4 paddlers, leaving the half-caste to continue down the river with the ivory. The 2 fellows there seemed astounded at anybody attempting such a thing. They were at a loss for an adequate motive. As for me, I seemed to see Kurtz for the first time. It was a distinct glimpse, the dugout, 4 paddling savages, and the lone white man turning his back suddenly on the headquarters, on relief, on thoughts of home. Perhaps setting his face toward the depths of the wilderness, toward his empty and desolate station. I did not know the motive. Perhaps he was just simply a fine fellow who stuck to his work for its own sake. His name, you understand, had not been pronounced once. He was that man, the half-caste, who, as far as I could see, had conducted a difficult time with great prudence and pluck. Was was invariably alluded to as that scoundrel. Jason, hey buddy, how you doing? Welcome to the House of Thrillers. Hi there, Keely. You are welcome to the House of Thrillers. T.O. Trumplewind, welcome to the House of Thrillers. Okie Grower 75. How's everybody doing tonight? You guys enjoying this? Rita says I'm back. I put on scuba gear and I'm ready. Hey Jenny, how are you doing this evening, my dear? Jason, I appreciate you stopping by, buddy. Hope you're able to relax, pop in some earbuds, and listen to me read. Rita says, hey Jenny. The House of Thrillers. I'm your host, Scully, the author that reads to you. I write thrillers that pose serious questions. I'm also open to suggestions as far as dedications and readings. If you want to submit something, Jayscullybooks, Jayscullybooks.com, Jayscullybooks@gmail.com. Yeah, after having watched the replay last night, I realized I had a garbling water stream sound effect in the background that just about drove me crazy. So I came up with a little something new for you guys tonight. And I did tweak my audio just a little bit, tried to bump that up a little bit without blowing up my computer over here. The scoundrel had reported that the man had been very ill, had recovered imperfectly. Imperfectly. Oh my goodness. The scoundrel had reported that the man had become very ill, had recovered imperfectly. The two below me moved away then a few paces and strolled back and forth at some little distance. I heard, military post, doctor, 200 miles, quite alone now, unavoidable delays, 9 months, no news, strange rumors. They approached again, just as the manager was saying, no one as far as I know, unless a species of wandering trader, a pestilential fellow, snapping ivory from the natives. Who was it where they were talking about now? I gathered in snatches that this was some man supposed to be in Kurtz's district, and of whom the manager did not approve. We will not be free from unfair competition till one of these fellows is hanged. Hanged, why not? Anything can be done in this country. That's what I say. Nobody here, you understand, here can endanger your position. And why? You stand the climate. You outlast them all. The danger is in Europe. But there before I left, I took care to. They moved off and whispered. Then their voices rose again. The extraordinary series of delays is not my fault. I did my possible. Fat man sighed. Very sad. And the pestiferous absurdity of this talk, continued the other. He bothered me enough when he was here. Each station should be like a beacon on the road towards better things, a center for trade, of course, but also for humanizing, improving, instructing. Conceive you that ass! And he wants to be manager? No, it's... Here he got choked by excessive indignation, and I lifted my head the least bit. I was surprised to see how near they were, right under me. I could not have spat upon their hats. Chris, what's up, buddy? Construction cronies. Paximus Enterprises. Paximus. Okie Grove 75. Where are we at? Chris, you got the chill pill tonight, buddy? Ah, I'm toasted. It feels good. I could have spat upon their hats. They were looking on the ground, absorbed in thought. The manager was switching his leg with a slender twig. His sagacious relative lifted his head. You have been well since you came out this time, he asked. The other gave a start. Who, I? Oh, like a charm. But the rest? Oh my goodness. All sick. They die so quick, too, that I haven't the time to send them out of the country. It's incredible. Just so, grunted the uncle. Ah, my boy, trust to this, I say, trust to this. I saw him extend his short flipper of an arm for a gesture that took in the forest, the creek, the mud, the river. Seemed to beckon with a dishonoring flourish before the sunlit face of the land, a treacherous appeal to the lurking death, to the hidden evil, to the profound darkness of its heart. It was so startling that I leaped to my feet and looked back at the edge of the forest as though I had expected an answer of some sort to that black display of confidence. You know the foolish notions that come to one sometimes. The high stillness confronted these two figures with its ominous patience, waiting for the passing away of a fantastic invasion. They swore loud together out of sheer fright, I believe. Then, pretending not to know anything of my existence, turned back to the station. The sun was low and leaning forward side by side. They seemed to be tugging painfully uphill their two ridiculous shadows of unequal length that trailed behind them slowly over the tall grass without bending a single blade. In a few days, the El Dorado expedition went into the patient wilderness that closed upon it as the sea closes over a diver. Long afterwards, the news came that all the donkeys were dead. I knew nothing as to the fate of the less valuable animals. They, no doubt, like the rest of us, found what they deserved. I did not inquire. I was then rather excited at the prospect of meeting Kurtz very soon. When I say very soon, I mean it comparatively. It was just 2 months ago from the day we left the creek when we came back to the bank below Kurtz's station. Going up that river was like traveling back to the earliest beginnings of the world, when vegetation rioted on the earth and the big trees were like kings. An empty stream, a great silence, and an impenetrable forest. The air was warm, thick, heavy, sluggish. There was no joy in the brilliance of sunshine. The long stretches of the waterway ran on, deserted, into the gloom of overshadowed distances. On silvery sandbanks, hippos and alligators sunned themselves side by side. The broadening waters flowed through a mob of wooded islands. You lost your way on that river as you would in a desert, and butted all day along against shoals, trying to find the channel till you thought yourself bewitched. Check, 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 check. We Culture Australia, welcome to the House of Thrillers. Come on in and pull up a seat. We're reading The House of The Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. It was the stillness of an implacable force brooding over an inscrutable intention. It looked at you with a vengeful aspect. I got used to it afterwards. I did not see it anymore. I had no time. I had to keep guessing at the channel. I had to discern, mostly by inspiration, the signs of hidden banks. I watched for sunken stones. I was learning to clap my teeth smartly before my heart flew out. keep a lookout for the signs of dead wood we could cut up in the night for the next day's steaming. When you have to attend to things of that sort, to the mere incidents of the surface, the reality, I tell you, fades. The inner truth is hidden, luckily. But I felt it all the same. I felt off in its mysterious stillness watching my monkey tricks, just as it watches you fellows performing on your respective tightropes for, what is it, half a crown a tumble? Try to be civil, Marlowe, growled a voice. I knew there was at least one listener awake besides myself. I beg your pardon? I forgot the heartache which makes up the rest of the price. And indeed, what does the price matter if the trick be well done? You do your tricks very well. And I didn't do badly either, since I managed not to sink that steamboat on my first trip. It's a wonder to me yet. Imagine a blindfolded man set to drive a van over a bad road. I sweated and shivered over that business considerably, I can tell you. After all, for a seaman to scrape the bottom of the thing that's supposed to float all the time under his care is the unpardonable sin. No one may know of it, but you never forget the thump. A blow on the very heart. You remember it, you dream of it, you wake up at night and think of it, years after, and go hot and cold all over. I don't pretend to say that steamboat floated all the time. More than once she had to wade for a bit, with 20 cannibals splashing around and pushing. I'll tell you this, we had enlisted some of these chaps on the way for a crew. Fine fellows, cannibals in their place. They were men one could work with, and I am grateful to them. And after all, they did not eat each other before my face. They had brought along provisions of hippo meat, which went rotten, and made the mystery of the wilderness stink in my nostrils. I can sniff it now. I had the manager on board and 3 or 4 pilgrims with their staves. Sometimes we came upon a station close by the bank, clinging to the skirts of the unknown, and the white men rushing out of a tumble-down hovel with great gestures of joy and surprise and welcome seemed very strange, had the appearance of being held there captive by a spell. The word ivory would ring in the air for a while, and on we went again in the silence, along empty reaches round the still bends between the high walls of our winding way. Reverberating in hollow claps the ponderous beat of the stern wheel. Trees, millions of trees, massive, immense, running up high, and at their foot, hugging the bank against the stream, crept the little begrimed steamboat, like a sluggish beetle crawling on the floor of a lofty portico. It made you feel very small, very lost, and yet it was not altogether depressing, that feeling. Trucker Z, welcome to the House of Thrillers. Dodgy, appreciate you coming by tonight. I'm Scully, your host, the author that reads to you. Trucker Z. After all, if you were small, the grimy beetle crawled on, which was just what you wanted it to do. Where the pilgrims imagined it crawled to, I don't know, to some place where they expected to get something. I bet. For me, it crawled towards Kurtz. The reaches opened up before us and closed behind, as if the force had stepped leisurely across the water to bar the way for our return. We penetrated deeper and deeper into the heart of darkness. It was very quiet there. At night, sometimes the roll of drums behind the curtain of trees would run up the river and remain sustained faintly, as if hovering in the air high above our heads, till the first break of day. Whether it meant war, peace, or prayer, we could not tell. The dawns were heralded by the descent of a chill stillness. The woodcutters slept. Their fires burned low. The snapping of a twig would make you start. We were wanderers on a prehistoric Earth, on an Earth that wore the aspect of an unknown planet. We could have fancied ourselves the first of men taking possession of an accursed inheritance, to be subdued at the cost of profound anguish and of an excessive toil. But suddenly, as we struggled around the bend, there would be a glimpse of rush walls, of peaked grass roofs, a burst of yells, a whirl of black limbs, a mass of hands clapping, of feet stamping, of bodies swaying, of eyes rolling under the droop of heavy and motionless foliage. To the buffers. The steamer toiled along slowly on the edge of a black and incomprehensible frenzy. The prehistoric man was cursing us, praying to us, welcoming us. Who could tell? We were cut off from the comprehension of our surroundings. We glided past like phantoms, wondering and secretly appalled, as sane men would be before an enthusiastic outbreak in a madhouse. we could not understand because we were too far and could not remember, because we were traveling in the night of first ages, of those ages that are gone, leaving hardly a sign and no memories. Test, test, test. Sorry about that, you guys. The earth seemed unearthly. We are accustomed to look upon the shackled form of a conquered monster, but there you could look at the thing monstrous and free. It was unearthly, and the men were... No, they were not inhuman. Well, you know, that was the worst of it, the suspicion of their not being inhuman. It would come slowly to one. They howled and leapt and spun and made horrid faces, but what thrilled you was just the thought of their humanity, like yours, the thought of your remote kinship with this wild and passionate uproar. Ugly. Yes, it was ugly enough. But if you were man enough, you would admit to yourself that there was in you just the faintest trace of a response to the terrible frankness of that noise, a dim suspicion of there being a meaning in it which you so remote from the night of first ages, could comprehend. And why not? The mind of a man is capable of anything. What was there after all? Joy, fear, sorrow, devotion, valor? Rage? Who can tell? But truth stripped of its cloak of time. Let the fool gape and shudder. The man knows and can look on without a wink. But he must at least be much of a man as these on the shore. He must meet that truth with his own true self, with his own inborn strength. Principles won't do. Acquisitions, clothes, pretty rags that would fly off at the first good shake. No, you want a deliberate belief, and appeal to me in this fiendish row, is there? Very well, I hear, I admit, but I have a voice too, and for good or evil mine is the speech that cannot be silenced. Of course, a fool, what with sheer fright and fine sentiments, is always safe. Who's that grunting? You wonder I didn't go ashore for a howl and a dance. Well, no, I didn't. Fine sentiments, you say? Fine sentiments be hanged. I had no time. I had to mess about with white lead and strips of woolen blanket helping to put bandages on those leaky steam pipes. I tell you, I had to watch the steering and circumvent those snags and get all the tin pot along the hook or by the crook. There was surface truth enough in these things to save a wiser man. And between whiles I had to look after the savage who was a fireman. He was an improved specimen. He could fire up a vertical boiler. He was there below me, and upon my word, to look at him was as edifying as seeing a dog in a parody of breeches and feather hat, walking on his hind legs. The evil spirit inside the boiler would get angry through the greatness of his thirst and take a terrible vengeance. So he sweated and fired up and watched the glass fearfully, with an impromptu charm made of rags, tied to his arm and a piece of polished bone, as big as a watch, stuck flatways through the lower lip. Appreciate you guys coming out tonight to support the House of Thrillers. I'm Scully, the author that reads to you. So what are all you guys up to this weekend? To laugh, to love, to learn. Some 50 miles below the interstation, we came upon a hut of reeds, an inclined and melancholy pole with the unrecognizable tatters of what had been a flag of some sort flying from it in a neatly stacked woodpile. This was unexpected. We came to the bank, and on the stack of firewood found a flat piece of board with some faded pencil writing on it. When deciphered, it said, "Wood for you. Hurry up. Approach cautiously." There was the signature. It was illegible, not Kurt's, a much longer word. Hurry up. Where? Up the river? Approach cautiously. We had not done so. But the warning could not have been meant for the place but where it could have found after. But the warning could not have meant. Fuck's sake. Something was wrong above, but what and how much? That was the question. We commented adversely upon the imbecility of that telegraphic style. The bush around said nothing, and not let us look very far either. A torn curtain of red twill hung in the doorway of the hut and flapped sadly in our faces. The dwelling was dismantled, but we could see Appreciate you guys being out here tonight. Obviously, I cannot read tonight. This is the director's cut of The Heart of Darkness. Towards the evening of the second day, we judged ourselves about 8 miles from Kurt's station. I wanted to push on, but the manager looked grave and told me the navigation up there was so dangerous that it would be advisable, the sun being very low already, to wait where we were still until next morning. Moreover, he pointed out that if the warning to approach cautiously were to be followed, we must approach in daylight, not at dusk or in the dark. This was sensible enough. 8 miles meant nearly 3 hours steaming for us, and I could also see suspicious ripples at the upper end of the reach. Nevertheless, I was annoyed beyond expression at the delay, and most unreasonably too, since one more night could not matter much after so many months. plenty of wood, and caution was the word. I brought up in the middle of the stream. The reach was narrow, straight, with high sides like a railway cutting. The dusk gliding in it long before the sun had set. The current ran smooth and swift, but a dumb immobility sat on the banks. The living trees, lashed together by the creepers and every living bush of the undergrowth, might have been changed into stone. Even the slenderest twig to the lightest leaf. It was not sleep. It was unnatural, like a state of trance. Not the faintest sound of any kind could be heard. He looked on amazed and began to suspect herself of being deaf. Then the night came suddenly and struck you blind as well. When the sun rose, there was a white fog, very warm and clammy and more blinding than at night. It did not shift or drive, it was just there, standing all around you like something solid. At 8 or 9, perhaps, it lifted as a shutter lifts. We had a glimpse of the towering multitude of trees, of the immense matted jungle, with the blazing little ball of the sun, hanging over it all perfectly still. And then the white shutter came down again, smoothly, as if sliding in greased grooves. I ordered the chain, which we had begun to heave in, to be paid out again. I went forward and ordered the chain to be hauled in short so as to be ready to trip the anchor and move the steamboat at once if necessary. "Will they attack?" whispered an awed voice. "We will all be butchered in this fog." The faces twitched with the strain, the hands trembled slightly, the eyes forgot to wink. It was very curious to see the contrast of expressions of the He looked out into the fog in a dignified and profoundly pensive attitude. I would no doubt have been properly horrified, had it not occurred to me that he and his chaps must be very hungry, that they must have been growing increasingly hungry for at least this past month. They had been engaged for 6 months. I don't think a single one of them had any clear idea of time, as we at the end of countless ages have. They still belonged to the beginnings of time, had no inherited experience to teach them, as it were, and of course, as long as there was a piece of paper written over in accordance with some law or other made down the river, it didn't enter anybody's head to trouble how they could live. Certainly they had brought with them some rotting hippo meat, which couldn't have lasted very long anyway, even if the pilgrims hadn't, in the midst of a shocking hullabaloo. It looked like a high-handed proceeding, but it was really a case of legitimate self-defense. You can't breathe dead hippo walking, sleeping, and eating, and at the same time keep your precarious grip on existence. Besides that, they had given them every week 3 pieces of brass wire, each about 9 inches long. And the theory was that they were to buy their provisions with that currency in riverside villages. You can see how that worked. There were either no villages, or the people were hostile, or the director, who like the rest of us fed out of tins, was an occasional old he-goat thrown in, didn't want to stop the steamer for some more or less recondite reason. Welcome to the House of Thrillers. So, unless they swallowed the wire itself or made loops of it to snare the fishes with, I don't see what good their extravagant salary could be to them. I must say it was paid with a regularity worthy of a large and honorable trading company. For the rest, the only thing to eat, though it didn't look eatable in the least, I saw in their possession was a few lumps of white stuff like half-cooked dough of a dirty lavender color. They kept wrapping leaves, and now and then swallowed a piece of, but so small that it seemed done more for the look of the thing than for any serious purpose of sustenance. Why in the name of all the gnawing devils of hunger they didn't go for us? They were 35. Have a good truck in for once amazes me now when I think of it. They were big, powerful men, with not much capacity to weigh the consequences, with courage, with strength, even yet, though their skins were no longer glossy and their muscles no longer hard. And I saw that something restraining one of those human secrets that baffle probability had come into play there. I looked at them with a swift quickening of interest, not because it occurred to me I might be eaten by them before very long, though I own to you that just then I perceived, in a new light as it were, how unwholesome the pilgrims looked, and I hoped, yes, I positively hoped, that my aspect was not so, what shall I say, so unappetizing. A touch of fantastic vanity which fitted well with the dream sensation that pervaded all my days at the time. Perhaps I had a little fever too. One can't live with one's finger everlastingly on the pulse. Don't you know the delivery of lingering starvation, its exasperating torment, its black thoughts, its somber and brooding ferocity? Well, I do. It takes a man all his inborn strength to fight hunger properly. It's really easier to face bereavement, dishonor, and the perdition of one's soul than this kind of prolonged hunger. I did not think they would attack for several obvious reasons. Pia, pixel, Pia, pixel, Pia. Welcome, Ariel. It's great to see you. If they left the bank in their canoes, they would get lost in it, and we would be if we attempted to move. Still, I had also judged the jungle on both banks quite impenetrable, and yet eyes were in it, eyes that had seen us. The riverside bushes were certainly very thick, but the undergrowth behind was evidently penetrable.